Breaking news. Former U.S. intelligence officer exposes shocking truth about American political leadership. In a devastating critique that's sending shockwaves through political circles, Scott Ritter, a former U.S. intelligence officer with battlefield experience, has laid bare the alarming reality of America's current political landscape. What he reveals should make every citizen pause and reflect on where we're heading. America has become a circus where clowns run the show, declares Ritter, whose patriotism and willingness to die for his country remain unquestioned. This isn't just another pundit's opinion. It's a battle-hardened veteran speaking truth to power. The most chilling revelation concerns Trump's presidency. Despite voting for him as the lesser evil, Ritter exposes how Trump's promises of peace and diplomatic solutions proved worthless. The former president's handling of Iran stands out as particularly troubling. While publicly promising a fair deal, Trump allegedly orchestrated what Ritter compares to a Pearl Harbor-style betrayal, resulting in the elimination of Iran's entire negotiating team. The consequences? Catastrophic. Iran was reportedly ready to make unprecedented concessions, limiting uranium enrichment to 3.75%, opening doors to American inspectors, effectively abandoning nuclear weapons ambitions. Instead, this historic opportunity was sacrificed on the altar of political machinations. The ramifications extend far beyond the Middle East. Today's global instability, escalating tensions with Russia, and the erosion of American diplomatic credibility can be traced back to these decisions. For ordinary citizens, this means increased security risks, higher energy prices, and a more dangerous world. Most alarming is Ritter's assessment that current U.S. leadership is steering us toward a big war, while smiling and talking about peace. Are you watching from a region affected by these political decisions? Share your location in the comments below, and let's track how these global shifts impact different communities. The revelations from Moscow's high-ranking officials paint a chilling picture of global security hanging by a thread. Russia's position remains clear. They won't initiate nuclear warfare, but their response to American nuclear aggression against Iran would target European soil. This isn't speculation. It's a sobering reality check of our world's stability. The U.S. administration's approach to international relations has reached dangerous levels of recklessness. Inexperience and ambition among key advisors have created a perfect storm of potential catastrophe. While some professionals in Washington understand nuclear deterrence, their voices are being silenced. The situation worsens with officials holding both Secretary of State and National Security Advisor positions, a constitutional contradiction nobody addresses. This concentration of power among hawks who desire confrontations with Russia, Iran, and China threatens global stability. For those outside Russia, I'm interested in your perspective. How do these tensions affect your region? Share your thoughts. Your viewpoint could provide valuable insights. Want to stay updated? Hit subscribe now. The shift in U.S. foreign policy from diplomacy to aggression hasn't gone unnoticed in Moscow. The administration's misunderstanding of strategic balance, combined with questionable advisors, has created a dangerous mix of incompetence and bravado. What's troubling is the disconnect between public statements and actions. While peaceful rhetoric flows during speeches, policy decisions tell a different story. The administration's handling of Middle Eastern affairs shows a lack of basic regional understanding, confusion between cities, and misrepresentation of geopolitical dynamics. Want analysis of how these tensions affect your region? Let me know where you're watching from. The story continues to unfold, and what comes next might shock even seasoned observers. Stay tuned for our next segment, where we'll explore unreleased intelligence that could reshape our understanding of these events. Title: The American Defense Mirage. A critical analysis of failed promises and depleting resources. In a shocking revelation about U.S. defense capabilities, former intelligence officer Scott Ritter exposes the theatrical nature of recent American military movements in the Middle East. The carefully orchestrated Saudi Arabia visit wasn't diplomacy. It was stagecraft, precisely timed within a 60-day window to create an illusion of stability. Ritter doesn't mince words. Trump is a criminal par excellence, he declares, drawing parallels to Pearl Harbor that should make every American pause. The absence of anti-war protests speaks volumes about our society's moral decline. While previous generations would have filled the streets, today's America watches in silence as critical infrastructure crumbles under Iranian strikes. The much-vaunted Iron Dome system, supposedly America's premier defense technology, is failing spectacularly. Despite billions in taxpayer money poured into its development and upgrades, including THAAD systems and naval installations, the results are mediocre at best. Iran's tactical genius involves launching older decoy-laden missiles, deliberately triggering defensive responses while they're real. Weapons slip through. More alarming is the rapid depletion of American interceptor missiles. As THAAD missiles run low without replacement production, military commanders in the Indo-Pacific region face a nightmare scenario. Ships in the South China Sea are being stripped of their SM and SM-6 missiles for emergency redeployment to Israel, leaving Taiwan essentially defenseless. The proposed Golden Dome project, with its $175 billion price tag and 3-year timeline, appears to be another expensive fantasy. The technology simply doesn't exist, Ritter emphasizes, suggesting the final cost could skyrocket to $4 trillion while delivering nothing of substance. This systematic failure of American defense strategy raises serious questions about leadership competence and resource allocation. As our military capabilities diminish and strategic assets are mismanaged, the global power balance shifts dangerously. What's your take on America's current defense strategy? Share your thoughts in the comments. I believe my viewers are intelligent experts whose opinions matter. Breaking news. Global chess game reveals deepening transatlantic rift. The recent U.S. Security Council meeting has morphed into a theatrical display of political uncertainty. Donald Trump's latest performance on the world stage has left skeptics bewildered, as grand expectations concluded in ambiguous silence. European capitals wrestle with unprecedented anxiety. Berlin and Paris have voiced a shared concern. No one understands what to expect from the U.S. anymore, and that's what frightens us most. American presidential ultimatums now resemble cheap theater, where some pretend to command, others to obey, and audiences feign belief. Across major European cities, an atmosphere of tense silence borders on hysteria. Official comments are sparse, while analysts remain confused. Is this improvisation, error, or a calculated performance? While Europe nominally remains in Washington's orbit, the 2020s reality dictates new rules, with each nation pursuing its own interests and fears. For the U.S., it's another move on the geopolitical chessboard. For Europe, the threats are real: economic, political, and humanitarian. The specter of migration waves looms, while southern borders face destabilization. French, German, and Italian foreign ministries rush to convene emergency meetings. Teams of diplomats, experts, and intelligence specialists gathered with one question: how far is Washington willing to go, and is there any predictability left? In Berlin, tension rises. A senior chancellor's advisor admitted that current events mirror the mistakes of the early 2000s. What's alarming isn't just Washington's tone, but the style. No coordination, no proper communication with allies, no assessment of consequences for Europe. The EU continues to operate like a club of disconnected, nervous individuals. Eastern countries panic about border instability. Southern nations dread a repeat of the 2015 migration crisis, while Scandinavian countries maintain their high-alert stance. What do you think about the current situation in global politics? Share your thoughts in the comments. Here's a 2,000-character geopolitical analysis. Europe's paralysis, a critical look at the current crisis. Today's analysis reveals a deeply troubling situation in Europe, where humanitarian organizations in Brussels, Geneva, and Amsterdam are already calculating potential refugee flows. Internal documents suggest hundreds of thousands of displaced persons could be heading towards Europe if the crisis continues to escalate. The Eastern Mediterranean, Balkans, and southern Italy are identified as particularly vulnerable regions. Their infrastructure is already strained to breaking point, with social tensions moving from political discourse into everyday reality. Scott Ritter, in his latest assessment, highlights Europe's schizophrenic position. European leaders are trapped between obligation and self-preservation, with every decision potentially toxic. Supporting Washington unconditionally could trigger domestic backlash, while resistance could destabilize the fragile Brussels consensus. European media headlines keep asking, "What's happening? Where's diplomacy? Why aren't we consulted?" Yet answers remain elusive, both from Washington and European capitals. Even traditionally vocal nations like the Netherlands and Belgium have fallen silent, waiting to see how the new geopolitical combination unfolds. The waiting game has transformed Europe into a helpless spectator in what Ritter calls a theater of geopolitical absurdity. European political offices are gripped by a thick, nervous silence. Each new tweet or statement from Washington becomes a dangerous puzzle, where misinterpretation could lead to diplomatic disaster. The European establishment is caught between maintaining political credibility and avoiding humanitarian catastrophe, between alliance obligations and self-preservation instincts, between declarative solidarity with the US and the realization that America is dragging them into an adventure where Europe will bear the consequences. This explains their agonizing silence and ambiguous reactions. The crack in the global architecture is becoming more visible, challenging the idealistic vision of a unified, controllable world system that global strategists once dreamed of creating. What do you think about Europe's current position? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'm sure my viewers have valuable insights to contribute. Title: Global Power Shift: How Sanctions Failed and New World Order Emerges. In a remarkable twist of global politics, Scott Ritter reveals how Western pressure tactics have backfired spectacularly. Russia's response to unprecedented sanctions has demonstrated extraordinary resilience, adapting its economy and strengthening technological sovereignty rather than collapsing as predicted. North Korea emerges as the master of defying expectations, wielding strategic unpredictability as its most potent weapon. Pyongyang's ability to maintain its course despite isolation proves that traditional pressure methods have lost their edge. China's transformation is perhaps most striking. From being the world's factory, Beijing has evolved into an architect of a new international order. Through initiatives like Belt and Road and aggressive diplomatic expansion, China offers an alternative to Western dominance that dozens of nations find increasingly attractive. The competition has transcended military might, evolving into a battle of standards and meanings. China's approach appears more sophisticated and forward-thinking compared to Western bureaucracy trapped in old imperial mindsets. Iran stands as a testament to resilience. Decades of sanctions and isolation haven't broken Tehran but strengthened it. The country has developed self-sufficient technologies, built an economy on its terms, and created its own alliance network. This shift marks the death of unipolarity. The global majority rejects living by foreign templates, having experienced their consequences firsthand. Even traditional allies question the effectiveness of the old control model, which increasingly resembles poorly directed improvisation. Those previously considered mere objects of foreign policy are becoming independent actors, proposing their own solutions through conferences, economic alliances, and alternative media platforms. The rhetoric shifts from threats to negotiations and regional initiatives. As Ritter notes, maintaining influence now requires a fundamental rethinking of approach. The old playbook of sanctions and isolation has lost its effectiveness against nations that have learned to adapt and thrive despite pressure. What do you think about these changes in global power dynamics? Leave your thoughts in the comments. I'm sure my viewers have valuable insights to share. Breaking point: Iran's resilience reshapes global power dynamics. The old playbook of sanctions and pressure is facing a stark reality check. What we're witnessing isn't just resistance, it's a fundamental shift in global power dynamics that's sending shockwaves through traditional centers of influence. Iran stands as a prime example of failed Western strategy. The assumption was simple: crush them with sanctions, wait for economic collapse, and watch society crumble from within. Instead, Iran's economy adapted, its leadership consolidated power, and we're seeing remarkable resilience. The India-Pakistan confrontation serves as another watershed moment. When Pakistan deployed Chinese JF-17 fighters and PL-15 missiles, India had to back down. This wasn't just a regional skirmish. It was a clear signal that Chinese military technology has become a game-changer. The Chinese footprint is expanding strategically. British intelligence reports Chinese transport aircraft regularly disappearing near Iranian borders. Beijing's message is clear. We oppose external pressure on sovereign states. Meanwhile, Iran's alliance network is activating. Houthi forces in Yemen are on standby. Lebanese groups are positioning themselves, and North Korea's Kim Jong-un is monitoring the situation. Pakistan, a nuclear power, maintains strategic silence, but as Scott Ritter notes, absence of words doesn't mean absence of position. Trump appears caught in a dilemma. Unlike Libya or Iraq, Iran isn't isolated. It has economic partnerships, ideological allies, and international support networks. The population, though weary of sanctions, shows no signs of surrender. The global stage now resembles a theater where each act could be the finale. Oil prices surge, markets tremble, and diplomats scramble to craft their eighth Plan B, none offering any guarantee of tomorrow's stability. What's your take on this shifting global landscape? Are we witnessing the end of traditional power dynamics? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your perspective matters in understanding these critical changes. This analysis comes from verified sources and expert observations, focusing on factual developments rather than speculation.